YouTube, what's good? What's going on with you? It is your girl Kyrie, and we have more reactions for you. I know it's been a minute. I'm here with chat. Say hi, chat. Hi, YouTube. Kyrie's keeping us hostage again, and Zelmox says, "Fuck you, YouTube." You know what? Y'all need to be nicer to YouTube. Y'all need to be nicer to YouTube. I'm not keeping y'all hostage. I'm not keeping y'all hostage. Y'all willingly chose to be here. You could have told me, nah, Kyrie, I don't feel like doing it today. That's fine. But no, you chose. But it's YouTube. Okay? We gotta be nice to our YouTube community. We're locked in the basement. Help. Oh my god, Zelmox. It is not that deep. Anyway, we're gonna get into a couple. I have a few reactions for you today. But first off, we're gonna get into getting into noise and power electronic music. Now, if you don't know, I make noise music sometimes. I make gore noise specifically. I do like a lot of noise artists. I don't know why, but it tickles my brain in such a way that, like, I can't help it. Oh, wait, YouTube is useless. They can't help us. You need different mods for YouTube so we can fight them. I don't stream on YouTube. We didn't choose. You put us in change and threw us into the frenzy incubation zone. Well, I don't know what to tell you. All right, we're going to get into this. Wyatt has a very calm tone, so some of you guys might find this boring. If you do, just skip to the next video. Chat has to say here. So, why the fuck are we saying hi to YouTube? Because I have 2,500 subs on YouTube, and I like to acknowledge their presence.
Distortion, reverb, feedback, and static. For most musicians and other forms of music, these are basically side effects for them that they have to deal with, that they can even use to their advantage whenever they create their own forms of music in their respective fields. However, in noise, these are basically the main ingredients as to what makes this style of music something really unique in its own right. Noise music has always fascinated.
I just want to say, yeah, distortion, feedback, static, like unhinged sounds that are not palatable to the human ear. That's the building blocks of noise music and in power electronic music too. So, yeah. And honestly, some industrial metal too. Not gonna lie.
Me. Not just for its abstract concept that basically goes against the rule books of music all the time.
The video is not loud enough, by the way. Okay, hold on. I don't know what to do about this, because I'm going to be real with you. Every time the video is not loud enough, because it's at max volume, then the game is too loud. So we gotta find a medium here, guys. I turned it up. I need y'all to tell me if it's good enough.
The time, but it really has to do with just the challenging nature of it all. By having just a basic understanding of this style of music, it's very apparent that this is definitely not for everyone. But I do feel like as to what is its overall selling point and as to why people invest with it, is that because of its abstract nature that will always be attached with the style.
But you're not playing games at the minute. At the same time, though, like, up until recently, it was the same volume all the time. Nose ring? Man is wild. Yeah, Wyatt's always had a nose ring. That doesn't bother me too much. I think it's pretty cool. He's a metalhead. I mean, alternative people have always had body modifications. That is a little bit better. Okay. I need y'all to tell me because, like, up until recently, the game and volume and the video volume have always been the same. So, I don't know what has changed.
Of noise, you'll either come across albums that are so unorthodox and against the grain that it really tests your overall understanding of what music can create sonically, or you come across albums that are so vicious, perverse, and vile that it really transcends your understanding of what disturbing music is. But before I get into talking about the albums to get you into noise, I want to deviate for a sec and actually discuss the origins and history of noise music.
I think my favorite kind of noise-ish artist, like in just regular noise, it's probably Northern Tongues. They're more black in noise than anything because they've got black metal elements as well as noise. And then my favorite gore noise artist is Last Days of Humanity. They're great. They're really awesome. Of course, Merzbow is a default band to get into. What? What? What do you see? There's nobody there. Sorry, my dogs are freaking out and I can't see anything.
Because for the longest time, I always thought the origins for it came around the late 70s and early 80s when, I believe, Throbbing Gristle came around in the late 70s and they introduced to the world industrial music.
Yep.
And noise was kind of like a spawn off of it in the early 80s when groups like Wyattxhim were popping through. But that's actually not the case when it comes to the origins of noise, because the real origin actually spawned all the way back roughly around a little over a century ago in Italy.
Really?
The individual in question that started it would be Luigi Russolo, who was an Italian futurist who believed that with the Industrial Revolution that was happening around the world in the early 20th century, that the audience wouldn't be so interested in the conventional means of music, and thought because of the noises and sounds that would come from industrialization, he wanted to bring that concept over onto music. And around the years of 1913 and 14, he basically created noise orchestras for the audience.
Oh, okay.
That attended Luigi Russolo's shows, they would get the experience of hearing his own instruments that he created himself called intonora mores. These instruments were large and bulky in size, and
they look like speakers with funnels on them. That is a lot to lug around for concerts. Because, I mean, they were just starting to have cars around this time, right? So it's wild to me because I'm pretty sure they had to lug a lot of this on foot.
Recreate the sounds, essentially, of the Industrial Revolution that was very abrasive and obnoxious. And as you would expect, it didn't really hit well with audiences whenever he played shows. Thus, for his time, he was viewed as an artistic failure. Yet, all of these decades later, Luigi Russolo has become now this historical figure for noise music history. That, yes, you could credit documentation and the internet for kind of like his spotlight into this subject matter. I still feel like it's important to at least discuss the origins of it and the importance of, people from the past having the ambition to at least challenge and kind of break the rule book of their time. So while, again, yes, his approach is very different to what I guess you could call modern.
I do want to say, like, with noise music especially, it pushes the boundaries of not just, like, sounds and how you use them, but what the human brain is capable of conceiving through audio. Because, like, noise is not palatable to most people. Even there are certain noise artists that I can't even listen to just because of the fact that, like, it makes me physically uncomfortable. There is one exception to the physically uncomfortable part, and that's Stalag and Gulag. Their whole thing is they do, like, dissonant orchestras. Like, they use dissonant orchestral stuff with screaming, like just wailing, and for some reason that makes me physically uncomfortable, but it's palatable to me. I'm weird, okay? I'm a dumb lizard, like, we all know this, so I'm a little weird with how I do it. Hi, Herbal, welcome in.
Day noise, if that's even such a term. I still feel like credit is due for Luigi Russolo's overall involvement with it. With all the time that's passed since then, there's a whole other dimension basically of noise albums and noise artists to listen to that becomes really intimidating at first. Just by the synopsis of it, noise is essentially anything but accessible. Thus, I feel like if you look at the wrong areas of it, you can get immediately turned off by it in a moment's notice. Thus, when it comes to talking about albums that help someone get into noise music, I would either recommend albums that are essential because of the impact in history they have on this style of music, or the very small handful that I would consider to be accessible because they're easier to follow along with and have some of the, I guess, musical norms that you would be accustomed to hearing in music that makes things a bit more familiar.
I do want to say there's also a bunch of micro-genres to noise as well. Like, it's not just one thing. Like, for example, we have Philo Medusa, who uses frogs to make noise music. It's literally called frog noise. There's vomit noise, which uses, like, gurgling and the sounds of bile and stuff like that. There's gore noise, which is an extension to gore grind. And thus has like super fast blast beats that are almost unbearable to listen to. I make gore noise. Welcome back, Zero. There's also punk noise where like it uses raw pain and anti-capitalist themes to get across their sound, but it's still noise. Like there's one Japanese punk noise band that I really like that's called the Gregor Gegege. And oh my god, they are abrasive. And then you like the Tetragrammaton. I don't even know where Tetragrammaton sits. I think they're war metal. But because of how intense their music is, it could almost be considered noise.
Hence why I always find myself talking about Prurient whenever this conversation is brought up. Now, Prurient is the alias to that of Dominic Furno, which is a very prolific individual when you look at his body of work that he's done with a wide range of musical styles that he's played around with. Obviously with Prurient it would be noise, but other projects like Vatican Shadow that has a mixture of industrial and techno, which is some really interesting stuff that I would recommend just overall for individuals who enjoy either style of those genres, to even black metal, as I believe he's part of a band called Ashpool for a little bit that even did a...
I need to listen to Ashpool because I don't think I actually have looked into Ashpool. They sound really cool. Like, just from the logo and everything alone, and the fact that the guy who works on it has done so many genres. What are we watching? We're watching an intro into noise music and power electronics by Wyattxhim. That is not a funny symbol. Listen, it's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. This is black metal, and it's not supposed to represent any sort of affiliations, okay? Is it not a black sun? It's a spiral. It's supposed to be like a galaxy. It's supposed to be like a galaxy. Trust, if it was... My bad. No, you're good. If it was a black sun, because I know some black metal musicians do that, I feel like it would be a bit more obvious. I feel like it would be a bit more obvious. And he would have said it was an NSBM band. But he just said it was black metal. Like, straight up just black metal. So I don't think it's going there. Hi, Calf.
Split with the Kitsa. But Prurient is
The
the
Kitsa,
project that
okay.
he's mainly known for because most of his work stems from it. And when you pay attention to the discography of Prurient around the late 2000s to early 2010s, you'll notice now that there's a lot more accessibility from it, mainly having to do with the fact that he plays around, yes, with noise, but he's not afraid to experiment with other forms of music, which again makes it a bit more familiar on the ears for newcomers. And when you
Okay.
take into account arguably his most critically acclaimed album to date, Frozen Niagara Falls, for a lot of people, this is considered to be one of the most accessible noise albums really you can find,
Oh,
because even though this album runs for 90 minutes long, it's quite the odyssey of a listen. You'll
that is a fucking long ass album. 90 minutes? Oh my god. Welcome in, everybody.
notice now that there's forms of music such as industrial, ambient, dark wave, no wave, and forms of acoustic
That is a lot of
instrumentation
music.
kind of like is laced together with the noise, that it becomes a lot more rhythmic and easy to follow along with. Thus, I would argue if you're trying to get even like the slightest grasp of noise music overall, this is arguably the best place to start with. And if this album appeals to you, then I would strongly recommend my personal favorite Prurient album, that being Pleasure Grounds, because
Ooh.
Dominic Furno really showcases the power of feedback with composition on it, because the ambience that bounces off is just so mesmerizing, which
That's such an odd word to use when describing noise music, but you know, with him saying that that's one of the more accessible artists, yeah, that makes sense. You know what? You got me curious, Zero, and I'm actually going to look it up right now. Ashpool.
Tylko jedno w głowie mam, koksu 5 gram, odlecieć sam w krainę zapomnienia.
Okay, so Ashpool is not NSBM. They are raw black metal. Top trending game for the Steam Easter sale is Corn Game. Yeah, that sounds about right. Oh, okay. So so Ashpool used to be NSBM. Around 2005, they quit. So that makes sense. I just went and looked. I had to ask. You got me curious. Is the logo from 2005? That album is from like 2004, 2005. Let me double check before I confirm that. Ashpool Metal Archives. Let me check. Albums. It's from 2010. That album cover is from 2010, so it is not a Black Sun. All right. Yeah, so they had an interview about it because people were questioning whether or not they were NSBM. And they said that they used to be back in 2005, but now they're not. So, yeah. Now you don't have to stress it. Plus, like, Wyatt would have said if they were NSBM, he's very open about like the different genres and whatnot. They're raw black metal, so they're good. You're good. Knowledge gained. Indeed.
I didn't think beforehand it was even possible, but this opened up a whole new world for me, this album, which is I guess why I have such an attachment and fondness with it. And even Dominic's vocal performance, as powerful, vicious, and tortured as he sounds, what's just so captivating about it is not only just the powerful composition of ambience that just, again, will engulf you, but Dominic's vocal performance is so emotive, not just for noise standards, but music as a whole. And I would state that, yeah, this is arguably, for my personal taste, his best work.
Well, then I would suggest Zero to, clear out your older games. You know what I mean? Also, I love the way he describes Prurient's work because it gives me kind of, how do I put it? It gives me kind of vague description and a preparedness for what I would be going into if I started listening to them. Hi, Jen!
I am here!
Welcome in, welcome in.
If you're feeling more adventurous and you want to get into the deep end in the Prurient discography, then I would strongly recommend what is considered to be by some as the fan favorite, Cocaine Death, which you're going to notice now this album's a lot more assertive and aggressive because there is the slightest slither of rhythm in all of it.
Oh, there's actually rhythm. That's surprising. What you doing? We're doing reactions right now. You missed the horror game section. Tell my sister to play with me. Jen, play with Calf.
But it'll be so disorienting hearing just the pulsating noises and static bounce off everything. And Dominic's vocal performance, as just savage as it is with any other album, just feels as if a lot more punchy. Like he's really trying to, again, destroy your senses, not only with his vocal approach, but just every little decibel of noise you'll hear off of it.
Okay. Now I'm curious. I want to see. I got to do a 6-day streak this week. Ooh, okay. Okay, we are going to actually pull up Prurient and see if we can hear them because now Wyatt's got me curious. All right. Prepare your ears. I'm not even going to play the full 30 seconds, but this is one of the noise singles. This is Harsh Noise. This is 15 years old. Hold tight, because it's probably going to be loud. There is a rhythm to this one, though. Yeah, I know it was loud. That's what I was warning you about. Okay. I was curious. Sorry for anybody's ears.
And if this doesn't satisfy your craving for just unhinged noise, at least in the Prurient discography, then go to the deepest part and then listen to The History of AIDS, because this is easily the most unhinged you will find Prurient's overall approach. Now, obviously, I'm not going to just sit here and name every Prurient album. There's a whole other plethora of noise artists to talk about, and one that is just as important, influential, with just the notoriety attached with him is Masumi Akita, mostly known for being the man behind the project Merzbow.
I knew he was going to talk about Merzbow. Merzbow is insane with their stuff. In fact, I'm going to show you a little bit. Prepare your ears again, because, like I said, noise is not supposed to be accessible. It's not. It's not supposed to be palatable to the human ear. But it's very interesting, and that's why I'm showing you guys. Oh, great. The Mormons are having their conference. That's lovely. All right. Merzbow is a noise artist. I will not show you a lot of their work. because they are loud as fuck. So keep that in mind. Turn your volume down as viewer discretion is advised. Oh, adorable. Thank you, Willow. This is some of Merzbow's stuff. I'm only playing 30 seconds of that. Just to kind of get you to understand, like, it is vastly different.
The key contributing factors that has led to his notoriety, success, and influence for noise is quite substantial, actually. Because when you look at the fact that he's been active since essentially the Japanese noise scene started in the early 80s and has kept with it ever since.
I just want to say, I love that Merzbow looks like a vampire holding a chicken as his pet. Like a rooster. That is wild to me. I don't know why.
So to a lot of people, he's considered to be an originator for it, along with the fact, too, that his discography is insane.
I think that's his pet rooster. I think that's his rooster.
Like, last time I checked, I think there's roughly around 400 releases under his belt, if not more, and it grows substantially every year.
Oh yeah, okay, so the wild thing about noise artists as well, a vampire holding his chicken, yep, I'm not going to say the other word, but like, the wild thing about noise artists, and I'll use Philo Medusa as an example, is that they can release thousands of albums. Thousands. And most of the singles are going to be short as fuck. Like, each song is going to be at least a couple seconds, right? Philo Medusa, for example, he has 170 records. He has 170 records. It is insane. All of their records go as far back as 2007, right? And if I check their Discogs, there are 217 records from 07 all the way to now. All right. So when I say noise artists can release a lot, they can release a lot. Also, if you haven't checked out my little gore noise project, it's called Trisomy 13. I just wanted to put that out there.
So he's always been just so on the, trigger, releasing albums consistently. And a lot of those albums he's done collaborations with, which I do feel like helps get his name thrown around a lot more, especially in the metal scene, because I know he's done collaborations with Sun, Boris, and Full of Hell. And the latest collaboration that he's doing, which I know it's on the realms of metal, but I still think it's really cool that he's doing this, is that later on this year, he's going to release a collab with Beat Me Manifesto, which from the track I've heard, it's just...
Not Beat Me Manifesto! Oh my god! Sorry, that was really funny. No. Beat Me Manifesto! I'm sorry. I've heard funnier names. But the way he says that with a straight face is really funny.
This really crazy, obnoxious, kind of like breakbeat noise that, again, if you just like music with percussions that are obnoxious, abrasive, and hard-hitting, this might appeal to you from what I've heard of the preview. and I can't wait to hear the rest. When it comes to discussing what is the best album to start with in the Merzbow discography, a lot of people point towards Pulse Demon, which I would argue against that because this is a very just schizophrenic, abrasive, abstract noise album.
Oh yeah, Pulse Demon is crazy. Pulse Demon is crazy.
That really has no formula or structure to it. It's just abrasive, nonsensical noise that, again, has more of that improvisation, kind of like mindset with it. And I feel like the reason as to why this album has so much notoriety and traction is more of the backstory with it, because this was originally released in, I believe, the mid-90s, and it wasn't put out through a label of like some abstract noise label. It was actually put out originally through Relapse Records, the same label as most of you guys I'm sure know puts out albums in the style of like death metal, grindcore, and sludge metal, and other forms.
Which is insane that a metal record label would be okay with noise, being played and released. But, I mean, it did well. Pulse Demon did really well.
Forms of extreme metal, mainly known for being an extreme metal label. This was just so unheard of for its time, and what it did is when it was originally released, it was introduced to a whole new audience that really wasn't ready for a noise album. Thus, again, it has more traction from that. So I feel like if you're trying to get into Merzbow and, again, get a better understanding of noise music, the best album to start off with in his discography was actually released, I believe, in the early 2000s, called Merzbow. As you can kind of tell just by the album title, Merzbow is a lot more focused on percussions, composition with forms of psychedelic and breakbeat.
I'm sorry, the little goober on this album cover is so goofy looking. It's funny. It's funny. It looks like a potato with googly eyes that is giving you a blend. It's like, you know what I mean?
That even though it runs for 50 minutes long, a good portion of it is really easy to follow along with and actually quite engaging. Again, make no mistake about it, it's going to be abrasive, it's going to be very hectic with how the percussions are laid out, but again, there's just more of a familiar sense with how it's all being played out. Thus, I would recommend this is the best place to start off within the Merzbow discography, and just overall a really solid noise album to help you just understand what you're getting yourself into, basically.
Okay.
As I'm sure you're kind of aware at this point, I feel like to get someone into noise music, you need to find more of the rhythmic sense in noise. And another great album to check out that runs for nearly 4 hours long, so you'll definitely get your fill.
4 hours. Holy fuck. That's almost half of Everywhere at the End of Time. Like, Everywhere at the End of Time by The Caretaker was 9 hours long. Holy fuck.
For it is Alberich, NATO Uniform Men. Self-described by the individual behind this project, Chris Lapke, as heavy electronics. It's a mixture of drone, dark ambient, industrial, power electronics, and a multitude of other forms of electronic music, all combined together, that it's more of a slow burn. Again, this album runs...
Okay, now I'm curious. Again. We're going to go to YouTube, and I'm going to hear what this sounds like. Because I want to know. Okay. I'm just going to play one song, and only for a couple seconds. Prepare your ears. Do what you have to do. It starts off really haunting, and then it just goes ham with like synth. It like really leads into it. When you hear Kyrie's Discord notifications, sorry, I turned streamer mode off for a second. Turning it back on. My bad. But no, that's really interesting. Are you getting messages on Discord, or am I actually going schizo? I accidentally turned streamer mode off. My bad.
Runs for nearly 4 hours long, and there's a lot of minimalism and slow progressions being unfolded throughout it. That, yeah, it's definitely not the most eventful, but it's very easy to follow along with. That I feel like for people who just kind of want background music, you want an album to just fill up the space in an empty room, this album does have some really intriguing moments. Again, it kind of creates more of like this bleak, dark, and grim atmosphere while being minimal at the same time. I just feel like the compositions and overall sounds you get are very powerful just by the minimalism. And again,
It did feel very powerful. Like the one song that I heard a couple seconds of, like it was very. It felt like you were like surrounded by war, and then the synths just slowly crept up.
and a really intriguing album, and I feel like another great gateway for this style of music. And if you're looking for even more rhythmic oriented noise that tends to be a bit more upbeat, I might add, then I would strongly recommend Dream Crusher with the album Incinerator, which even though these songs range.
We're doing it again. We're looking at it. I need to know. I need to know what I'm getting into. Dream Crusher, Incinerator. Alright. Kyrie demands answers. Exactly. I'm gonna just play Cathedral of Moths for a second.
Want to save $1,000?
No, I don't. Shut up. Okay. That was actually pretty catchy. I will not lie. I like that. I like that a lot.
Range from 7 to 8 minutes long, and I believe even the intro track runs for like roughly around 21 minutes long and then some.
Yep.
They are repetitive, yes, but they're really infectious because the percussions, as repetitive as they are easy to digest. And the slow progressions through the synthesizers that kind of like circle around these beats and percussions add a bit more of like this livened up feature to it. That, as weird as this sounds, I feel like this album kind of embodies the energy of what like a rave would be for noise artists and noise fans. It's like the feeling it has, because to be honest with you, out of everything I'm talking about, the most fun I had listening to a noise album would be this by Dream Crusher. That it's just a really infectious noise album because of its percussions. That if you're looking for more upbeat and like percussion oriented noise, definitely check out some of Dream Crusher's work. The next inclusion might be somewhat of a cheat because it's not really labeled as a noise project or a power electronics project. If anything, it's more labeled in the realms of noise rock and punk rock with elements of noise. And I want to primarily focus on just noise artists with like no other subgenres attached with it. But I feel like I need to include these guys again if you're trying to get into noise and be more familiar with it. And that would be White Suns with their album Totem. Now, as I stated...
Okay. White Suns and Totem. We're gonna look. I like knowing about these. Okay. We're going to look at Cathexis, or Cathesis, however you say it, from that album. It was released in 2014. We're going to prepare our ears and go from there. It almost sounds progressive. That's cool. I like that. It definitely gives punk vibes, but it also like has that dissonant, noisy tone. There's definitely a rage that could be felt.
They are a noise rock band, and they're not going to be labeled as like a power electronics or stuff like that. However, when you listen to how they play their instruments, it resembles the structure of noise so much that I feel like I just had to include it. Because yes, there are guitar, bass, and drums being played on this album, but they play it so violently and chaotically that these instruments that you're used to hearing in the traditional sense just sound like a whirlwind of razor blade static and noise, obviously, being cacophonated, that is just really intense to listen to.
It is.
However, with all of just these layers of static and reverb just, falling on top of each other, there's still like this little glimmer of like a punk band like in the middle of all of this mess. Thus it makes it easier to follow along with and has more of that familiarity that you would expect. That it's like you're getting the, I guess, chaotic nature of punk, but the abrasive factor of noise like side by side here. And it's really mesmerizing as it is terrifying and powerful. And honestly, I had a blast listening to this album. Whether or not you're a fan of punk or a fan of noise, it's a really intense and intriguing listen that, again, if you're trying to get into noise, definitely check out White Suns.
Okay.
Lastly, for the more accessible albums in this video, I would recommend Wolf Eyes with their album Burned Mind. Now, Wolf Eyes...
Say less. Say less. We're gonna look at it. We're gonna look at it. Let me see it. All right. I'm gonna check out the title track.
Say hello to Sarah.
Shut up. I didn't ask for you to do that to me. I hear birds. I heard the chugs. They sound like frogs. That definitely gives me noise, but it's more ambient. I was very surprised.
This is a really intriguing project. Even though a bulk of their discography has to do in the realms of like abstract, abrasive noise that has a lot of improvisation to it, there are quite a handful of albums that dive more into realms of like ambient, dark ambient, and focus more on their composition aspect that is quite effective and unique. However, with the album Burned Mind, this is easily Wolf Eyes at their most unhinged and aggressive. Personally, I feel like it's important to point this out because when I hear the term extreme music, I know a lot of people think of extreme metal immediately because they kind of go hand in hand, both having the word extreme attached with it. But for me personally, extreme music also goes into the realms of noise, I feel like, mainly for it being so abstract, against the grain, and abrasive in nature.
And that's something that a lot of people don't get is that, like, extreme music is multiple genres, right? It's how far can you push it? How far can you go? And a lot of people don't get that. They think, oh, you're just supposed to go as hard as possible. No. Break the mold, break the composition, break the kind of break the box, the cage, break the rules. That's it. Breaking the rules of music is really where it boils down to.
Thus, when you listen to this album and hear the vocals on it, it's so vile and throat-wrenching that it resembles a lot of the characteristics, at least to my ears, to that of the black metal vocals. And when you hear just the pulsating and nauseating noises coming through it, as odd as it is, there's kind of like, again, a sense of rhythm to follow along with that I feel like in terms of execution, this album resembles a lot of the energy of extreme metal, but it's done in the realms of power electronics. That if you're an extreme metal fan and you want noise to just be dense, unforgiving, relentless, and vicious while still carrying, like, again, the attitude of what you like in extreme metal, this album gives that energy off throughout its whole runtime. And as weird as this is to say about a noise album, it's highly enjoyable.
I want a burger. I thought you wanted pizza. Also, yeah, he has a point. Like, even in the short snippet I heard, like, it's preparing for something so dense. Like, it sets the tone for you to brace yourself.
As for the last three albums, I would state these are more in the intermediate levels of power electronics and noise music.
I also want a pizza. I am Big Back. Man, I would take my drawers off for a motherfucking ultimate gourmet burrito from Taco Bueno. They need to bring it back. I'm just saying.
That, again, if you feel adventurous and you really want to test your overall endurance with this style this early,
I will eat 800 grams of pizza and then become 1% pizza. Man, you gonna do that again? But this time with pizza? I think you'd go into a food coma. I don't know how you didn't go into a food coma when you did that with ice cream.
on, definitely check these out. But I do feel like overall, if you're trying to broaden your horizons and understand just the overall subculture of noise as a whole, these three are essentials and need to be talked about. Obviously, if I'm going to make a video about noise, it goes without question that I need to talk about by default Wyattxhim, because their importance to the overall formation of noise and power electronics is significant.
The ice cream wasn't a good option because I upchucked from it, but pizza will be different, I believe. No, it won't.
To the highest degree. Basically, the best way I can summarize it is what Black Sabbath is to metal, Wyattxhim is to power electronics. So much so that they coined the term in the late 80s to help separate themselves from really any other noise artist, because they truly felt like what they were creating during their time was vastly different from everything else. It goes without saying, but I'll just state it anyway for those who are unaware. Wyattxhim are an extremely controversial project.
Yeah, Wyattxhim, their music is good for a noise project. But the kind of shit that they portray is disturbing.
Having themes that are extremely perverse and just taboo-like in nature that if you decided to go down an odyssey of White House releases, it's going to get messed up really quickly. But the album of theirs that's considered to be their magnum opus and debatably the best power electronics album ever made is Birdseed. And I feel like it has to do with the fact that the first 3 songs have a lot of bounce and aggression to them, that even though it's conducted in the sense of power electronics, when you hear William Bennett's screaming over all the noises and sounds, it resembles more of like this punk type of feeling with it. Not only is this album...
I'm not going to show you guys White House because of their controversy. Give me a sec. Let me just... One of their former members was convinced of possession of CSAM and released the infamous Buyer's Market Field Recordings album. And that is why they're so controversial. Peter Sotos released that as a solo project, Buyer's Market. The lyrics of their songs usually dealt with extremely harsh, intimate taboos. It's a lot. And Buyer's Market is probably one of the most disturbing albums out there. One of them. There are a lot. However, White House did influence power electronics and noise, and we cannot deny the work that they did. But if you want to look into the story of Peter Sotos and stuff like that, Wyattxhim has a video on the most disturbing albums he's ever heard. So you can check that out.
Substantial for the fact that it's a White House record, but I feel like a huge reason as to why it appeals to so many noise fans is a factor that you really don't think about when talking about power electronics. And it all has to do, honestly, with the production value on this album is stellar. It's very dense, but at the same time, all the sharp noises you're hearing are easy to understand and make out. And the producer behind this album was Steve Albini. Steve Albini, being the same guy who produced the final Nirvana record, also produced this album. And I think that's just fucking wild.
That is such a drastic jump in genre from grunge to power electronics. Oh my god.
The other project that's just as important when talking about the formation of power electronics next to White House is Sutcliffe Yorgan. Just like White House, Sutcliffe Yorgan is very perverse and taboo-like with their lyrical content that it can get downright disturbing at times.
Chat, I need to know, are we curious enough to look at this, or are we not going to? Because I'm totally fine with us not looking into this album. I need opinions. Because I already know about White House. I've listened to a little bit of White House. And I don't... Opinions on what? Have you not been listening? This album, the artist is very controversial. They talk of It's a Noise project. They have lyrics about severely taboo topics. So I got people talking over here, so I can't hear. Oh, I'm sorry. But it's basically a very controversial noise album. So I want to know if we are interested in looking at a 30-second snippet of this album. The one before this was just as controversial, and I was talking about how the vocalist was in possession of CSAM, and so I didn't want to share that with you. So that's why I'm concerned. Let me look them up before we do that so that I know what I'm getting into. So Cliff, Jurgen, controversy. Not very nice of them, exactly. Pioneer power electronics. Personal life was pro equal rights, but used their work as an outlet for tension, anger, mental struggles. Okay, they're not as bad as Wyattxhim. They're not as bad as Wyattxhim. Alright, we spit on their graves. Alright, that's the album. Okay. Alright. We're gonna look at this track. Apparently on We Spit on Their Graves, they have multiple songs about Jack the Ripper's victims. They also have a song on here that I cannot even say the name of, or I will be immediately flagged on all platforms. But we're going to hear it. We're going to hear 30 seconds of it. Prepare your ears.
Granger knows that as
If it gets really bad with, like, you know, hearing noises that you shouldn't be, we're immediately muting it. Because I don't know what we're expecting. Okay. 30 seconds I don't feel like is enough to really call it disturbing, but it is weird. It's up there. It's up there. What lovely music. Oh my god, Fiverr.
And for a lot of people that enjoy Sukleff Jorgen, they tend to point towards their album We Spit on Their Graves as like their best works that they've done. Although I do admit this album is really overbearing for anyone who even tries to listen to it, as it's kind of like this album of a compilation of sorts that runs for nearly 10 hours long.
Yeah, it's long as fuck.
I feel like for anyone who even tries to pursue listening to this album from beginning to end, mentally will be destroyed. Instead, I would suggest listening to the album when pornography is no longer enough. Not only because it isn't nearly 10 hours long like the previous album, and it roughly goes around 30 minutes at most, but I feel like the concept for it is a bit easier to digest. And even though I state that, just let it be known, by no means is this album easy on the ears. It's just pure power electronics is what this album embodies, really. The unhinged and just really uncontrollable screams that go off throughout this album kind of reflects more on like the ideas of withdrawals and not really getting your fix. As if this album's kind of like a manifestation of just someone mentally breaking down.
This album sounds like the manifestation of when a gooner becomes violent because they are no longer satisfied.
And every little aspect about it, from the noises, transitions, textures, and screaming, is a representation of that moment happening, is what I get from this album. And again, I do feel like it's a good representation of what you're getting yourself into if you start going more on the deep end of power electronics.
I'm going to show you guys what I usually peruse with noise at the end of this video so that you can kind of get a grasp of what I'm used to. And like my preferences, you're still going to have to prepare your ears, but I think it will be kind of a good example of like how vastly different, my preferences are, and how you can see, if you do decide to get into power electronics and noise, you can see what is desirable for you. Also, I just want to say, Guava likes my gore noise, even though it sounds horrendous. And I might play a little bit of my gore noise project for you guys, too.
Final album for this video, and easily the most pulverizing and brutal out of everything here, goes to Death Pile with their final full-length album, GR, which is the initials for the Green River Killer known as Gary Ridgway.
Why did I have a feeling you were going to talk about GR? What? All right. Let me make sure this one is... So the controversy with this one is not really too bad? Question mark. The only thing is that when you listen to this, you feel like you were an accomplice to what happened. I need to know if we're gonna listen to a snippet of it. I need to know, because it is hard to swallow. Do we have any opinions? Do we want to hear Death Pile for a second? Chat. I need opinions. Okay. Well, if we're not going to, I'm back again. Zero, I have a question. Had to restart my PC. No worries. So I'm gonna replay this part again so you can understand what I'm asking you for. I want to make sure you guys are okay with listening to a snippet of this noise album. But I need you to know the context.
To Death Pile with their final full-length album, GR, which is the initials for the Green River Killer known as Gary Ridgway. The concept for this album is it all has to do with dealing with the perspective of Gary Ridgway himself, a convicted serial killer that I believe was convicted of 49 murders from what I read and is suspected of committing almost over 70 murders, if not more.
This noise album comes from the perspective of a serial unaliver. It is not made by a serial unaliver, but it's from the perspective. So I need to know, do we want to listen to a snippet of it? Well, it sounds interesting. Sounds interesting? Okay. My curious ass want to hear it. Do not blame me if you feel uncomfortable. Alright? I gave you guys fair warning. I was actually not going to do it until I heard from you guys. So, we're going to go take a look. Death Pile GR. Alright. This is 40 minutes long. I'm going to play Addicted. I'm only going to play 30 seconds of it. Lurkers, chatters, I need you to brace yourselves. That's Genesis. This is Addicted. That's all I'm playing. I have listened to this before. I have heard the story. And I know that this is hard to stomach. Okay? Is everybody okay? Is everybody alright? Let me check in on you. I'm good? Okay. Zero Fiber, are we alright? I don't think my subwoofer liked it. Oh, no! Don't tell me you put it on the subwoofer! Oh no! We're listening to noise music! Oh no. I'm using speakers. Oh Lord. I hope that nobody came in and busted in your room and was like, what the fuck is that? I just turned the volume up this time. Oh, Jesus. It's fine, I think. Okay.
One might say that looking at this at face value, that it's done in a distasteful way, almost in the sense that we're glorifying this serial killer. When in actuality, I do feel like it's done with maturity, respect, and a tasteful sense, because
I played it on 25% volume and my entire desk vibrated. Oh no! It's got these flip-flops. Oh my god. Y'all are wallin'.
again, it's his perspective, and it's more of this narrative sense to give you an idea of what
I could turn it up to 100%. I'm fairly certain half the neighborhood would hear it. I don't need you getting in trouble or arrested for what is playing.
A serial killer might think and do. That, yeah, when I listen to this album and hear all the noises and textures and compositions, abrasive static that goes off, to all of just the schizophrenic-like sounds that come in and out from the vocals and audio samples, I feel disturbed, I feel gross, I can feel my stomach turn inside out, and this emotional reaction I get from it, which I feel like this album is trying to implore, that's what makes it tasteful. That's what makes it feel mature, that this is a very despicable individual, and thus we should have an album that kind of like portrays that, and we shouldn't
it does portray that nastiness. Like, it does make you feel gross. It makes you feel like, you know, this person should not exist.
Be afraid to make art like this. So I do feel like it's very ambitious in of itself to even explore this kind of territory onto any form of music or noise. I do feel like with the context attached with the album, which is impossible to ignore, because to even know of this album, I do feel like it becomes inescapable to also talk about the context with it. It's just a really disturbing piece of work in every aspect. And again, it's not an album I would recommend if you're trying to just get into noise, but for anyone who's adventurous, who really even wants to test themselves, I really feel like to the limit, again, when getting into noise music, this is like a really, really substantial album in every aspect in terms of the emotions, the context, the sounds. That, again, it's definitely not for everyone, but I feel like it's another essential when you start getting not only to the deeper parts of noise, but just experiencing and knowing what noise is really all about. Again, this is another album that embodies it in every which way possible.
Yep.
And that'll do it for this video, guys. Like always, links provided to...
Thank you, Wyatt. Also, what was the fucking noise artist you were listening to in the back? Oh, Bestial Burden by Pharmacon. Okay. Good to know. All right. Before we go to the next video, I'm going to show you guys what I usually listen to. Because I do peruse noise from time to time. We're going to start with... We're going to start off with one that most people know, and that is Stalag and Gulag. I'm going to mainly go for the Gulag half of the project because it's newer. I'm going to play Vorkuta. I'm going to play Vorkuta. It is one song. It is 45 minutes long. We are not playing the whole thing. I'm going to click through the middle of the song and give 30 seconds. So I need you to prepare your ears, prepare your buttholes. All right?
Join Planet Fitness for
Shut up. Shut up. Skip that. All right, that's 30 seconds. I'm going to play the peak of it, where the screams come in, because it's very important that you know what that sounds like for why I listen to this. The story is also very intriguing. There's hundreds of videos on this project, so you can always... I think even Wyattxhim did one, so... Pushing play. And then towards the end, it just gets dissonant. That's Gulag. Stalag is the same group. That was just their original name. Okay, they are an extreme noise band. Very interesting. All right. Now, we're going to go to the Gregoric Gay Gay Gay, the punk noise band I told you about. Sorry, Garo Garo Gay Gay Gay. And we're going to listen to that. So keep your buttholes clenched. I feel like the Garo Garo Gay 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 is a lot more accessible because the guitars and the drums actually have rhythm. For the most part. Okay. Then, this is not considered noise, but because of how intense it is, I still kind of do consider it noise. We're going to look at Tetragrammaton. I think they're from India, if I remember correctly. They're war metal, but, like, they are so intense. And I'm going to play this one.
Your ancestors.
Shut up.
Can you
Shut up. That's Tetragrammaton. Really, really good band if you're not ready to delve into noise, but you still want that intensity. Now, for gore noise, which is the genre that I normally make, the band that comes to mind the most is Last Days of Humanity. They are pretty controversial, but not in the way you might think. The reason I say that is because a lot of the times they use photos of actual people who have disconnected from God's Minecraft server. Photos of dead people. Get it out the way. Photos of dead people. Autopsy photos or just carcasses in general. Yeah, they do a lot of that. I think their best one was Putrefaction in Progress was that one. Like that Norwegian band that used a picture of their friend after they yeeted themselves. Yeah, Mayhem. But Mayhem is black metal. They were one of the first true Norwegian black metal bands. Yeah. The only difference is these are just random. Most of their songs for Last Days of Humanity are 30 to 40 seconds long. So we can play a full one. You see how, let me ask you this. You see how there's still blast beats like in Goregrind? It's high BPM. You can still almost hear the guitars, but the screams sound like gurgly bubbles. That's kind of the thing that makes gore noise pretty unique. I like Last Days of Humanity. They're actually pretty accessible, to be honest. And then the last one before I show my project is I'm going to show you Philo Medusa, the frog noise guy. I really like them. They're cool. We're going to play just like one song from them. And then we'll go to my band, and then we'll end the video here and switch to the next video. I like how they distorted the guitars to where it almost sounds like frogs are croaking a riff. It doesn't sound like it should be noise. I don't know if this one has any frogs in it. Let me see. I don't think so. Give me a sec. I eat the bug. Let's see, I eat the bug. They they're using the line from Smiling Friends. I'm Mr. Frog. This is my song. I eat the bug. I love that. This is what real gay frogs sound like. This is what happens when you put chemicals in the water and turn the fucking frogs gay. You get awesome shit like that. Alright. Now, we're going to go to my project because I want to show you my project. So, this is Trisomy 13. I know you guys can't see it. I'll pull it up. Well, I don't know if I can pull it up, because even though I've got the gore and my album covers blurred out, I still don't know if that's gonna be enough. Okay? I'm just gonna play one for like 30 seconds. It's obscene, it's loud. Hold on your butt cheeks. After these messages. Yeah, this is my gore noise song, chat. Quite the gore noise song, my thank you. All right, hold on to your butt cheeks. This is going to be abrasive. I'm going to click through halfway through the song because I actually make really long songs. I usually do 4 minutes, 5 minutes or so. Give me a sec. See, it's not that bad compared to some of the other stuff we've listened to for this video. And then it gets squishy. I'll show y'all one more. Trisomy 13 song. And then we'll end the video. This was the first one I ever did. It was called Screams in the Teratoma.
Would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant. For you, hate.
But that's all I'm showing you. Alright. Alright, chat. Say bye to YouTube for now. Hopefully this was an interesting educational lesson on bore noise, and power electronics. YouTube, I hope you liked it. Let me know what you think. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video.